The Dassler brothers built the best sports shoe company in the world together. Then a single argument split not just the company, but an entire German town for 70 years. Welcome to Deal English, where real business stories teach you the English that matters in the real world. Adi and Rudi Dassler grew up in Herzogenaurach, a small town in Bavaria. Their father worked in a local shoe factory. Their mother ran a small laundry business from home. The family had little money. Both sons grew up doing hard physical work from an early age, well before either one turned 20. After the First World War, Germany's economy was in ruins. Inflation wiped out savings overnight, and basic goods like leather and rubber were scarce. Many small manufacturers across Bavaria shut down entirely during those hard years, unable to find buyers or materials. In 1924, the brothers founded a small shoe company in their mother's laundry room. They called it Gebrüder Dassler Schuhfabrik, the Dassler Brothers Shoe Factory. Adi handled design and craftsmanship. Rudi handled sales and relationships with clients. It was an unusually clean division of labor for two brothers running a single small workshop together. Few partnerships, family or otherwise, managed that kind of clarity from the very beginning. Together, the two skill sets built something neither brother could have built alone. The brothers worked with leftover army materials and any scrap leather they could find. Proper supplies were almost impossible to buy in the early 1920s. Adi was obsessive about the smallest technical details of a shoe. He studied how athletes ran and where their weight landed. He studied how a spike could shave a fraction of a second off a sprint. He visited training tracks personally, watching runners for hours and adjusting prototypes by hand based on what he saw. Rudi was the opposite. He was outgoing, persuasive, and comfortable in a room full of strangers. He could sell a product before it was even finished. He traveled constantly, building relationships with coaches, club officials, and sporting federations across Germany. One of his earliest deals reportedly came from convincing a local sports club to order dozens of pairs on credit. The company didn't even have the cash to produce them yet. By the late 1920s, athletes at the Olympics were already wearing Dassler shoes. If elite athletes wore your shoes on the world's biggest stage, ordinary buyers would want the same shoes too. That instinct paid off enormously at the 1936 Berlin Olympics. Adi personally gave a pair of his spiked shoes to the American sprinter Jesse Owens. Owens went on to win 4 gold medals in front of Adolf Hitler himself, publicly embarrassing Nazi racial ideology. The photographs of Owens and Dassler spikes traveled around the world. It became one of the earliest and most powerful athlete endorsement deals in sports history. Orders for Dassler shoes surged across Europe in the months that followed. By the late 1930s, the factory in Herzogenaurach employed hundreds of workers. What had started as a handful of hand-stitched pairs in a laundry room had grown fast. In under 15 years, it became a serious regional employer. Like many German business owners of that era, both brothers joined the Nazi Party. It was a common decision among entrepreneurs trying to keep a company operating under the regime. During the Second World War, the factory was forced to shift toward military production instead of running shoes. Rudi was eventually drafted into military service, while Adi stayed behind managing what remained of the business. For a period, the factory produced military equipment instead of athletic footwear. The regime had redirected nearly every German manufacturer toward the war effort. The exact origin of the brothers falling out is still debated, but most accounts point to a single moment. During an Allied bombing raid, Adi and his wife climbed into a shelter already holding Rudi's family. Adi reportedly muttered a complaint about the dirty bastards returning to bomb the town. Rudi, already suspicious of his brother, believed the comment was aimed at him and his family. Other accounts point to older tensions too. Disputes over business control and jealousy between the brothers' wives had simmered for years before the war ever started. After the war ended, American forces briefly detained Rudi. It happened during the denazification process that investigated Germans suspected of supporting the regime. Rudi came to believe that Adi had reported him to investigators, deepening a rift that never properly healed. Whether or not the accusation was true no longer mattered. Trust between the brothers was effectively gone. For a company trying to rebuild its reputation after the war, even the suspicion of collaboration carried serious business risk. The outcome of any investigation barely mattered by that point. For a few years, the two men tried to keep running the company together, but the partnership had become unworkable. Disagreements over money, control, and family loyalty piled on top of the wartime resentment. By 1948, the brothers formally split Gebr. Dassler Schuhfabrik into two separate companies. It was a clean spin-off, one business dividing into two competing firms built from the same original factory. Adi named his new company Adidas, combining the first letters of his own name. Rudy briefly called his company Ruda, before settling on a sharper, more memorable name, Puma. Each brand needed a way to stand apart from the other on a shelf full of identical sneakers. This is brand differentiation, deliberately shaping a product's identity so customers can tell it apart from a near-identical rival. Adidas built its identity around a sports shoe with 3 parallel stripes along the side. Puma built its identity around a sports shoe with a leaping cat silhouette on the side. Even their homes reflected the divide. Adi and Rudy built houses on the same street in Herzogenaurach, close enough to see each other's windows. Only a tall hedge separated them, and neither brother ever removed it. The split didn't stay inside the factory walls. It tore through Herzogenaurach itself. Employees, suppliers, and even entire families picked a side. Local bakeries, butchers, and churches quietly became known as either Adidas businesses or Puma businesses. Residents reportedly glanced down at strangers' shoes before deciding how friendly to be. The habit earned the town its lasting nickname, the place of bent necks. It became one of the starkest examples of brand loyalty, dividing an entire community rather than just a market. Marriages between an Adidas family and a Puma family were reportedly rare for decades. Some longtime residents still avoid mixing socially with the other side today. Local sports clubs split too, with separate teams sponsored by each company. Children growing up in the town sometimes learned which brand to wear before they learned which football team to support. Each brother guarded his own technical knowledge closely. The exact stitching methods, rubber formulas, and stud designs that gave a shoe its edge were closely held. They were rarely written down or shared outside a small circle of trusted staff. That kind of closely guarded know-how is a trade secret. It's confidential business information that gives a company an advantage, precisely because competitors don't have it. Adi did formally protect some of his designs too. He filed a patent on his now famous screw-in studs, a legal right that stopped Puma from copying the exact mechanism. Puma engineers spent years working around the patent. They designed their own version of removable studs, achieving a similar result through a different mechanical approach. Over his lifetime, Adi reportedly filed several hundred separate patents. They covered everything from boot soles to entirely new training shoe categories. Companies still face that same choice today: patent an invention publicly, or protect it quietly as a trade secret instead. Those studs mattered immediately. At the 1954 World Cup final, heavy rain turned the pitch to mud. West German players wearing Adidas boots with interchangeable screw-in studs adjusted their grip mid-match. West Germany won the tournament in what became known as the Miracle of Bern. Adidas's reputation as a serious sports brand was made almost overnight. Adi himself was reportedly on the sideline that day, having personally fitted several of the players before kickoff. Adidas had moved first into Olympic and World Cup sponsorship. It built relationships with federations and athletes years before Puma caught up. That early positioning gave Adidas a real first-mover advantage. It's the lasting benefit a company gains by entering a market before its competitors do. Puma spent years fighting to catch up in the exact arenas Adidas already controlled. Sporting federations were often reluctant to switch suppliers once a relationship with Adidas was already established and working well. That reluctance alone was often worth more than any single product feature. Puma eventually found its own opening. In 1970, the Brazilian forward Pelé paused on the pitch to retie his shoelaces. It happened right before kickoff at the World Cup. The pause gave television cameras a long, clear shot of his Puma boots. The moment came from a quiet exclusivity agreement. That's a contract guaranteeing an athlete will be seen using only one product for payment. It became one of the most talked about marketing moments in football history. Pelé reportedly received a substantial payment, far above typical sponsorship pay of that era. Puma repeated the formula a few years later in basketball. It named an entire shoe after the NBA player Walt Clyde Frazier. The Puma Clyde became one of the first sneakers built around a single athlete's personal style. Pure athletic performance was almost an afterthought. Rather than competing head-on in every category, each brand leaned into market segmentation instead. Each one focused its marketing on different sports and different athletes. Adidas leaned harder into football and Olympic track and field, eventually supplying the official ball for the 1970 World Cup. Puma pushed into emerging markets and individual athlete deals outside Europe. Both brands also built distinct go-to-market strategies internationally. Adidas moved early into the United States through major retail partnerships. Puma built stronger early footholds across Africa and South America. Those regional choices from decades ago still shape where each brand feels strongest in the world today. Neither brother lived to see any reconciliation. Adi died in 1978. Rudy had died 4 years earlier, in 1974. Their sons inherited two competing companies. They also inherited decades of personal resentment that neither side seemed willing to let go of. For years, the two families reportedly avoided speaking to each other directly. That held true even at industry events where both companies were present. By the early 2000s, both companies had grown far beyond family control. Adidas became a publicly traded company. Puma did too. Professional management replaced the Dassler name at the top of both businesses. Today, both companies generate billions of dollars in annual revenue. Each employs tens of thousands of people across dozens of countries. Both still bid aggressively against each other for major Olympic and World Cup sponsorship contracts every few years. The brothers who started it all have been gone for decades. In 2009, employees from both companies played a symbolic friendly football match together in Herzogenaurach. It was a small public gesture toward healing a divide that had outlived both brothers by decades. Commentators called it the first organized gesture of goodwill in more than 60 years. Today, Adidas and Puma remain two of the largest sportswear companies on Earth. Both are still headquartered just a few hundred meters apart, in the same small Bavarian town where it all began. The lesson here cuts both ways. Rivalry clearly drove enormous growth. Without a hated competitor next door, neither company may have pushed as hard. Neither would have innovated as fast or expanded as aggressively. But that same rivalry destroyed the one relationship that built the entire foundation in the first place. Two brothers who once shared a workshop spent the rest of their lives refusing to share a sentence. In business, competition can build an empire. It can just as easily burn down the family that started it. Let's review what this story taught us. Endorsement deal. A contract where a company pays a public figure to promote its product. Spin-off. A new, independent company created by separating from a parent business. Brand differentiation. Shaping a product's identity so customers can tell it apart from rivals. Brand loyalty. A customer's continued preference for one brand over its competitors. Trade secret. Confidential business information that gives a company a competitive advantage. Patent. A legal right that stops others from copying a specific invention. First mover advantage. The lasting benefit gained by entering a market before competitors do. Exclusivity agreement. A contract guaranteeing a partner will be seen using only one company's product. Market segmentation. Dividing a market into distinct groups and targeting each one differently. Go-to-market strategy. A company's planned approach for launching and selling a product. That's the real story behind the three stripes and the leaping cat. If you want the full account of the brothers' feud, Barbara Smith's book, Sneaker Wars, covers it in detail. You'll find the link in the description below. Subscribe for next week's story, and we'll see you then.